Right, good. So we're going to continue looking at how adjectives are formed and used in New Testament Greek. And what we want to really look at today is just a reminder of what we looked at in a couple of weeks ago. And we'll do that by looking at a couple of important adjectives, mainly because they occur quite a few times, which is the adjective for many or much, and the adjective for large or great. And we'll just notice something specific about those. Then we'll have a look at the word order and something called some sandwich constructions, and see what they're about. And then we want to look at the use of adjectives as nouns. And then finally, if we get to it, we'll just look at some special uses of the verb to be. And there's two particular parts. Now, that all seems like quite a lot of different things, but they're actually quite related because it's all about, once we understand how adjectives are formed, about how then we might use some of the things that we've already learned. Okay, so we're going to pick up prepositions, and pick up the nouns that we've used and how we kind of put those into a sentence. Right, so that's what we do. To start with, though, we'll have a look at the English grammar. If we just do a quick check on that, and just make sure we're happy with where we are with our own language. So in terms of adjectives, just very quickly, an adjective is a word that describes a noun. We talked about that before, and there's a couple of different positions, if you like, that we can put an adjective into a sentence. So the attributive position, which is where we would say something like the good book. So it's an attribute, it describes something about that noun, and that's one way of using an adjective. Another way is to use the verb to be. So we can be a bit more specific about what we're doing, and in the predicative position we have the book is good. So same use of same adjective that's being used, but we're now specifically referring to the book. We're saying that this book or the book is good. So there's these two different ways of using an adjective which we had thought about. And we're going to just we'll come back to the other points there as we go through, just to remind you that we have these positions for our adjective to be positioned into a sentence. So if we take a look at the Greek, if we remember that, let's come back up to here. We had a little chart, as we love to have in Greek, as you're beginning to realize that there's lots of different ways to write the same word, and it's all about where it functions in the sentence. So is it the subject or is it the object? Is it describing something about the object or the subject? And so when we notice that for our nouns, so if we want to describe a noun using an adjective, then we have to make sure that our adjective agrees with the noun it's describing. So if we're describing the noun, the subject of the sentence, we need our adjective to be in the same case. So it needs to be in the nominative. And if it's a masculine noun, it needs to be a masculine nominative. So that's why we end up with this massive chart here. But then the endings, as you're hopefully beginning to see, are very similar. They're similar to the endings that we saw for the nouns, we saw for the article as well. So although it looks like lots of tables, in most cases there's lots of similarities, and once you start to see the patterns, then you start to spot that certain endings will go with certain words, then it kind of starts to fall into place a bit more. So this is the set of table that we would use to describe most or to write most adjectives in Greek. Not all of them, but they all decline. So that's just the ending. And one of the things that we have been particularly noting, I hope, is that a word is made up of essentially two parts. So we have a stem, which kind of tells us which Greek word we're talking about. What is the actual word itself? So in terms of agathos here, the stem is this part here, and then the ending is the bit that changes, and that tells you its function in the sentence, okay, so that we can identify what is good in the particular sentence. So with that in mind, just sort of that sort of stuff we were looking at last time, I'll just introduce you to another table with two particular words. So there's polis, which means much or many, and megas, which is large or great. Now, they are often written in terms of just describing by their masculine nominative form. So you'll notice that those are the two words I've taken. So there's polis and there's megas. Now they're both adjectives. We can talk about many things. We can talk about much something or other. We can talk about large things or great things. And as all adjectives, just like all adjectives, these have to, if we're going to use them, agree with the noun that they're trying to describe. But I want you just to notice a few things because there's a little bit of irregularity about this, and it does look a little bit like it's like a big table of different words to learn. And the reason why it's a bit more confusing is because the nominative form, which is the one I've highlighted in yellow, that we tend to describe the word as, or you'll see it written in a dictionary as, it doesn't actually have the main stem in it. It's actually an irregular part. So we need to look down. We'll just look at the polis to start with. You'll notice that if you kind of identify some of the key endings, right? This is the way to think about it. So if we look at the endings here, so we've got u and oi, us, un, ois, right? And if we look at the feminine endings, hey, a, n, s, a, I, as, un, and ace, right? If you look at those, and then if you look at the neuter ones, so these ones I'm just going to highlight here. All of these are your standard endings. They're the same endings as we have for the adjective agathos. You'll see that they're all the same for masculine, feminine, and neuter. And they are in fact the same for the nouns that we've been declining, for your masculine nouns, for your feminine nouns, and your neuter nouns. So it's all the same. And in fact, if you look at the ones I've highlighted green, you'll then notice that actually the main stem is pol with a double lambda. All right. So the stem really for the word for many or much is actually pol, and it has a couple of irregular forms, which is actually the masculine nominative and accusative. So the subject and the object of a sentence in either the masculine or the neuter has these slightly irregular forms where the lambda is dropped, one lambda is dropped, and we have, so we have polus, pollen, polu, right? So actually it's not bad. I don't think it's as bad as it looks perhaps to start with. And you'll recognize the word, and actually you just need to remember the key thing to learn here is that the nominative and accusative form for the masculine and neuter is just a bit irregular. And the same thing applies if we look at megas. Okay, this is why these are particularly highlighted, that you see that we have megas, mega, and a mega. Now, mega is easy to remember. You know what mega is. So it's one of those good words that we have in our English for something which is mega. It is meaning great, meaning large. So you should be able to learn the word very quickly. But you'll notice that the stem in this case is megal, and then the ending, which I won't highlight all of them, but you can kind of go through and see that we have its main stem and then its endings are identical to the ones that we already know. Okay, so having got all of that, once again, we are just thinking about a word with its stem. We need to learn its endings. Its endings are, in most cases, similar to what the ones we already know or identical to ones we already know. And then there's these couple of irregular forms. So let's translate a little bit, shall we? I'll probably try and keep both in the screen so we can see it. Let's move that up a little bit. Right, so I tried to get a sentence which had lots of megas and policies in it. Okay, so just take a little look at this and we'll see what we get up, what we come up with. Now I've kept them all together really, just so that we can kind of translate them as we go. So we have homegas kurios, and I guess the first thing to note here is that we are dealing with the irregular nominative form, and we have a nominative masculine ending here. So we have all of these three words, and maybe I'll highlight them. These three words must go together. Okay, they're all masculine words. Okay. I think the confusing bit about megas is there. It's sometimes a bit off-putting because of the alpha ending. You'll know that there is probably, or you'll at least be able to look up and remember that the alpha sigma ending is a feminine form for some of our nouns. So it can be a little bit confusing to think, oh, that must be feminine, but it's not actually. It's one of these irregular adjectives that we've got. So this is the great or the large. So we'll talk about the great lord, or the great master. So we can have it either way around. And then we come to another thing here. So we've got probably the ending, which is easiest to remember because it's consistent across all genders. Okay. It's a genitive plural, and you'll pick up this genitive plural for nouns quite quickly. It's quite a nice and easy one to spot. So the great lord we have, and then we've got, because we're in the genitive, so of the something or other. So of, and then we've got polon, which of course is to do with having many. Okay, we're in the plural, so many, and doulon is slaves. So of many slaves. So this is the great lord of many slaves. Right. And then exe, which is our verb. So we have our verb here, which is having. So I'll just put this having in there. That's our verb, which we know from one of our first sort of weeks. And then we've got megalane hemeran, and we might not remember what hemeran is. Hemera is the word for day, and it's in the accusative, so it's hemeran. It is a feminine noun, and therefore, if we want megan, the megas to link with that, then it needs to have its feminine accusative. It's a singular one, so megalane. All right, so it's having. We've got no article, so we'll just keep it as indefinite. Having a great day. Hopefully you guys are having a great day as well. Right, so the great lord of many slaves is having a great day. And then we've got a little preposition here just to remind you. So n. So hopefully you kind of remember that one. So that means in. And n follows as a preposition, always has words that follow with the dative case. So we would expect to find words with the dative that come after n. So in, and then we've got megalo. So megalo is a dative word here. So we've got two options. So we've got either it's going to be preceding rather a masculine noun, or it's going to be preceding a neuter noun. Okay, it's spelled the same. Happens to be a neuter noun, which is hiero, or hieron, which is the noun for temple. So this great lord's in a great temple. Okay, so in a great temple. All right, so we spot that I was supposed to be highlighting these as I go. Almost going to run out of colors. So we've got a great temple, and we have another preposition, which is meta. Meta could take two cases. So meta, if it's followed by words in the accusative, means something different to if it's followed in the genitive. In this case, it's the genitive, so it means with. So this is with. Oops, let's get rid of that. And we have tes polis agapes. Agape, we're probably familiar with agape, love, and we have a genitive singular. So we have love here. So he's in a great temple with love, but we want polis, so we'll use much, with much love. So hopefully, just by going through that, we can see that the adjective's going to agree with the noun. It will just in this place where we put it, it's in the attributive position, so it's describing, and that's is kind of how we would use it. We'd use all the other adjectives in a very similar way if we want to use them in this attributive position. Okay, so our first task really was just to kind of get ourselves thinking about adjectives, to do a little bit of translation with megas and polis. So if we're okay with that so far, then I have a little exercise, just a few questions. These are all in the nominative, just because we just wanted to use just a kind of bit of basic translation and make sure that you're happy with the use of the words. I suppose in many ways this is just about remembering or learning the nouns that they go with. So do you want to have a quick translation of these and then see how you get on with that? I will stop the recording.